Hi, this is Marty Jordan. I'm in Health Informatics 615, and I'm going to go over my assignments that I did. Um, so I'm going to do the matching section first. So I did the IP4 address types and classes. I did this one, and I started these back in week 2, and they were took me a long time to do these assignments because we didn't have a textbook that told us things, and I googled everything, and I looked up definitions for these words, and looked up on this assignment I looked up the IP addresses, and then tried to do them, and I had to do some of the labs over because even though the definitions, I looked up the definitions, they weren't always the right answers. But this is the IP address type for IP4 V4 address types. I passed it. The next one is identifying troubleshooting commands to use for various tasks. And so this one took me an hour and 12 minutes. And this is one of those where I looked up all the definitions to the words, but still missed and had to redo it. But I completed that lab and I got them all right, probably the second or third time. This one, security terminology and descriptions. Um, I this one was in some of these answers were in our textbook that we got for class. So even with having the textbook though, some of the answers I didn't get right. So, but I enjoyed this one because I'd really like to do my project on cybersecurity. So I completed this lab and got the answers right after doing the matching a couple times. The next one was types of network threats and attacks. And again, I'd like to do cybersecurity, so this was interesting to me. And so I completed this lab and looked up, and this one was in our textbook. The next one was security appliance terminology. And I thought this was pretty interesting because all of those different things I would have never known before. Um, and so the next assignments were the drag and drop. And so the next assignment we did was identifying common Cat5 wiring problems. And that assignment, I completed it. That was pretty straightforward, but I think I probably had to complete it twice. The next one was network typologies. Um, and I decided I wasn't going to complete it twice. And I think this one was in our textbook, but um, it I got some of them wrong, and I just didn't feel like doing it over. But I did complete the lab, and but I missed some. The next lab was create a straight cable. I really liked this one because it was um, colors, and even though I had to do it over a couple times, I finally figured it out, and I thought this was pretty fun. The next lab was creating a crossover cable. This one didn't take me as long because I'd gotten the colors down, and so I completed this one. So the next lab was matching command output. That one took me a while, but I can't figure out how to bring it up. But I completed that lab. And that one took me over an hour to do. Okay, so now we're going to go on to the next section, which is the simulations. I liked these assignments, but some of them made me want to scream. So I did this one, verifying a data link, and I did it. I actually did pretty good on that. That one took me 4 minutes, and I completed it. And then I did this one, and I figured out how to do that one, and I completed it, and that one only took me 6 minutes. And then the next one was using ipconfig to discover network settings. And so I passed that one. I don't know how long that one took me, but I did that one. I liked these because, you had to follow commands, but I don't think I could ever do this again without a manual if I worked in the industry. Using ping to troubleshoot was the next one, and I did it, and I passed it. So I completed this lab. And then the next one was using ARP to discover ARP to discover a MAC address. And so I completed this lab and passed it. That one only took me 8 minutes. And then the next one was using ipconfig, ping, ARP, and tracert. Now that helped me figure out the very final. The one I did last was troubleshooting practice, and it took me 3 hours, and I wanted to cry. But I completed this, and then I printed off this one to help me do the final lab. So this one took me 8 minutes. The next one I did was manually configuring a wireless network. And so I actually have done something like this before on my home because I don't have Comcast. I usually have a router and a modem and all that. And so I actually have done this before with help, but I've done it. So I completed this lab and I passed it. And then the next one was configuring a small office, home office. And then I did this one, and that one only took me 7 minutes. So I passed it and completed it. And then the next one was the one I did very last. And it was the one that it took me 3 hours, I believe. I had to do it. I couldn't configure it. I couldn't figure out how to configure it. I went and did extra labs to try to figure out how to do it. I did this lab, and then I just wiped it out and did it over again. And I went on the internet and tried to figure out how to change the IP address because I couldn't figure out how to do it. And I never did figure out how to do it because it would never let me do it the way the internet said it or the book said it. I tried to use the book, and I wanted to cry, but then I clicked the button and it said I passed. So I don't know how I passed, but I passed. And then the next one I did some other time I did this one, which was configuring a static host name resolution on a workstation. I like these because you just put in commands and then it brings up stuff. So I've passed that one, completed that one, and passed that one. And then the next one I did was using NS lookup. Sorry about my dogs. They're deciding they're going to fight with each other. So I passed this one. Stop. I passed that one. Stop it. Then I did this one, DNS troubleshooting, and I completed this lab, DNS troubleshooting. So I passed that one and completed it. Now, I thought this was the lab that would help me change the change the change the troubleshooting practice that I did finally, but it didn't. So, oh, I just like I said, I cried on that troubleshooting practice one. Um, Configuring an Ethernet um, interface on a router. I actually have worked with Ethernets in the past, so um, this one was relatively a um, fun, and it didn't take me that long. Um, the next one was using Tracert to um, I followed the commands, but like I said, if I ever have to do this in real life, I'm going to have a manual, and I'd think I'd be fired if it took me 3 hours to troubleshoot why a computer wouldn't connect to the internet. um, the next to last one that I did was creating network users on a um, domain controller, so I completed that one. And then configuring a VPN was the very last one, and I have a VPN at home. That's what I use. And so that one was easy for me. So, um, I enjoyed this assignment, but it was very hard, and it was very time consuming. And I started early because you said in your handout that we should start early. And I don't think I could do this without a lot more classes on computer science, which I may take some classes after I finish this program because I really like this part of it, and I would like to do cybersecurity um, in my future. So just for the future, I don't think that the textbook that we got from CompTIA was helpful at all. And I don't think that our textbook was very helpful for this assignment. And maybe that was why it was so time consuming. But it was a very worthwhile assignment, and I enjoyed it overall.